get ready to hold onto your seats because we're about to reveal some alarming news about the San Andreas Fault. This infamous boundary dividing California in two has been keeping the US government and Californians on high alert for years. And now, recent discoveries have shown that the fault is on the verge of rupturing, which could trigger a series of catastrophic events, including earthquakes and flooding. With a long history of high-power earthquakes, the San Andreas Fault is one of the most feared geological features in the world. In this video, we'll take a closer look at when the San Andreas Fault is predicted to rupture and what that could mean for the residents of California. From the devastating earthquakes of 1906 and 1989 to the more recent Northridge disaster, we'll explore the past, present, and future of the San Andreas Fault and reveal the shocking truth about what's at stake. If any one of you doesn't know about the San Andreas Fault, then just know that it is the fault which runs from the Salton Sea in the south to Cape Mendocino in the north. It's the most significant fracture of the Earth's crust in the western part of North America. This geological feature divides California into two and is known for its tectonic movement, which periodically creates high-power earthquakes along its path. The fault extends for over 800 miles, moving directly from California and passing offshore into the Pacific Ocean in the San Francisco area. Due to its proximity to populated areas, the San Andreas Fault has been the subject of intense scrutiny for decades, with geologists and seismologists keeping a close eye on its every move. The fault has a long history of seismic activity, with some of the most notable earthquakes in recent history occurring along its path. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake, with a magnitude of 7.8, resulting in widespread damage and loss of life. In 1989, a less severe earthquake occurred along a secondary fault in San Andreas, but it still caused significant damage to the Bay Area. In 1994, the Northridge earthquake struck the suburb of Los Angeles, resulting in the deaths of over 60 people and causing billions of dollars in damage. The Northridge earthquake occurred along one of the largest secondary faults in San Andreas, which highlights the potential for secondary faults to also trigger significant seismic events. Now, recent discoveries have shown that the San Andreas Fault is on the verge of rupturing, which has raised concerns among residents and government officials alike. The potential for a major earthquake along the San Andreas Fault is not a matter of if, but when, and it has the potential to trigger a series of catastrophic events such as flooding, landslides, and infrastructure damage. The San Andreas Fault has been a source of concern for Californians who live with a constant threat of earthquakes and other seismic hazards. However, recent developments have raised the alarm to new heights. According to one eminent seismologist, the southern portion of the fault system looks like it's locked, loaded, and ready to go. This statement is particularly concerning because there hasn't been a major release of stress in this portion of the fault system since 1857. As both the Pacific and North American tectonic plates continue to move in an approximately northerly direction, stresses are constantly building up between the two. This has led experts to suggest that the next big one could be imminent, and the consequences could be devastating. With this in mind, it's more important than ever for Californians to understand the risks posed by the San Andreas Fault and take steps to prepare for the worst-case scenario, because now it's time to take this threat seriously and prepare for the worst. The fault is a ticking time bomb. Imagine a ticking time bomb, slowly and steadily building up pressure over the years until it finally explodes with devastating force. That's what's happening beneath California's surface right now, and it's the reason why experts warn the next significant earthquake could be the big one. To understand why, let's take a look at the numbers. The San Andreas Fault, a massive fracture that runs through California, has an average rate of plate movement of about 2 inches per year. That may not sound like much, but over millions of years, those tiny movements add up. And when we look at the 159-year gap in major earthquakes along part of the fault, it becomes clear just how much strain has built up over time. According to back-of-the-envelope calculations by experts, that 159-year gap means the accumulated plate movement is around 26 feet. That's a huge amount of strain, and it's like a loaded gun just waiting to go off. When the tension becomes too great, the rock holding that strain will break, and the two plates will snap to a state of equilibrium. The resulting earthquake could be on the order of magnitude of 8.0 or greater, and the consequences could be catastrophic. This is not just a theoretical scenario, but a very real and present danger. Californians are living on top of a ticking time bomb, and it's only a matter of time before it goes off. Experts have been warning about the potential for a major earthquake for years, and it's up to everyone to take the necessary precautions to prepare for the worst. With the amount of stress that is built up in the fault system, the next earthquake could be very devastating, causing widespread destruction and loss of life. According to recent predictions, the maximum earthquake magnitude along the San Andreas fault system is limited to 8.0. However, there is a 7% probability that a magnitude 8.0 event could occur in Southern California in the next 30 years. In the same period, there is a 75% chance of a magnitude 7.0 event. It's easy to underestimate the difference between magnitude 7.0, 8.0, and 9.0, but the energy released by these events varies significantly. A magnitude 9.0 earthquake would release 32 times more energy than a magnitude 8.0, and 1,000 times more energy than a magnitude 7.0. The destruction caused by such an event would be massive, and unfortunately, there's no way to make a building 100% safe. The good news is that building codes in California are stringent, with recommendations for retrofitting seismic protection measures to older buildings and preventing the construction of new buildings near known fault lines. However, it's important to remember that no building is completely safe from an earthquake. While the sequence of events depicted in movies like San Andreas may be unlikely, the reality is that a great amount of destruction is likely if a major earthquake were to strike Southern California. It's important to stay informed, have an emergency plan in place, and take steps to minimize the risks. Don't wait until it's too late to prepare for the next big one. How much destruction is expected? The thought of a massive earthquake hitting California is a scary prospect. With the possibility of buildings crumbling, roads and infrastructure being destroyed, and lives lost, it's no wonder that people are on edge. But just how bad could it be? The US Geological Survey attempted to answer that question by modeling a 7.8 magnitude earthquake along the southern San Andreas fault. The results are alarming. The model predicts that the most severe damage would occur to constructions straddling the fault. But thankfully, the number of such constructions is low due to the Alquist-Priolo Earthquake Fault Zoning Act. However, there are still 966 roads, 90 fiber optic cables, 39 gas pipes, and 141 power lines that cross the fault zone, which would all be affected by the slippage caused by the earthquake. The cost of damage to buildings alone is estimated to be around $33 billion, with older buildings being particularly vulnerable. Fires would likely rage out of control as gas mains and water pipes are severed. In fact, the damage from fires is estimated to be more costly than the damage caused by the initial shaking. If all of this isn't enough to cause concern, the estimated death toll from the earthquake is a staggering 1,800. And as if that weren't bad enough, the earthquake would also destabilize the tectonics of the region, leading to a series of potentially powerful aftershocks. We only need to look at the 2011 Christchurch earthquake in New Zealand, where the city and surrounding region have experienced more than 10,000 aftershocks, to see the potential ongoing impact of an earthquake in California. Despite what you may have seen in the movie San Andreas, the reality is the earthquake scenario is not a work of fiction. The consequences of such an earthquake are very real, and it's important to be prepared. Building codes in California are stringent, but there's no way to make a building 100% safe. It's up to us to ensure that we're prepared for the worst, and that we have plans in place to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe in the event of a major earthquake. In California, where the threat of earthquakes is always present, building codes have been improved to ensure that structures are more resilient in the face of seismic activity. Similarly, emergency response plans have been put in place to minimize damage and loss of life. But it's not just up to the government and experts to prepare for earthquakes. We can all take steps to ensure our own safety and the safety of those around us. This includes having an emergency kit ready, making a plan with our families, and staying informed about potential risks and hazards.